The round of 12 is complete and we are headed into the round of 8 for the playoffs. It is shocking that we only have 4 races left in the season until we crown a champion, and I think we're going to see an upset based on what we saw at the Roval, so let's talk about it. This episode of Above the Yellow Line is presented by Shaq. Hey race fans, it's Taylor, and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. There's a lot to break down from the Roval. We also got to talk about some safety updates coming from this weekend at the Roval as well, with a driver meeting with NASCAR. So let's start by going down the line, talking about that meeting and what came from it and what we can expect next year with these cars. During the race weekend, the drivers in NASCAR had a meeting together talking about the concerns. Apparently, according to Brad Keselowski and a few other drivers, it was like Festivus. If you've seen the Seinfeld episode, one of my favorite episodes, you know what I mean, the airing of grievances. So it was a constructive conversation according to the drivers. It seems like things are going to start moving in the right direction, but on air before Sunday's race, Steve Phelps actually got on and talked about some of these concerns, how NASCAR is addressing them. He said that he blames himself, quite honestly, for not having a conversation with the drivers sooner. He said this should have happened after Kurt Busch got hurt, not after Alex Bowman got hurt. Both, of course, are out due to concussion-like symptoms. Steve Phelps led the conversation by saying that safety is one of the most important things to NASCAR. He also went on to say that this Gen 7 car is everything that NASCAR has wanted and more from a competition standpoint, obviously, though safety being the number one concern. We talked about last week how NASCAR was going to be doing some testing on the rear of the car, trying to figure out some safer equipment for that car. Those tests actually showed some good results. Apparently, the driver saw the results of those tests over the weekend, and NASCAR is going to be implementing the new parts to the car in the back starting in 2023, hoping to get these cars safer for the drivers. The drivers said that they liked what they saw with these tests, and they also hope that this will provide them some more safety when they wreck with the back of the car. So that's a wrap on this week's conversation on the safety of these cars. NASCAR did say that they hope to have weekly meetings with the driver moving forward for the rest of the season, which I think is a really good idea. Talking to them after each track about what they liked, what they didn't with the cars, especially in concerns to safety. So a good move on NASCAR, really good for the drivers to be able to air out their grievances and to have a constructive conversation about these cars. But now let's move into our results of the Bank of America Roval 400. At the Roval, starting with our Shaq MVP of the week. For me, this guy, he had to win to get in. I was pretty upset when he was in this position because I thought that he was really, really good in the first round. The second round, he just had really bad luck DNFing from the first race of that round. However, he made it happen. Christopher Bell is your MVP of the week, winning his second race of the season at the Bank of America Roval 400. He had a really strong car all day, but I have to admit those cautions near the end and that overtime really helped out his case. He was able to charge through the field after everyone stacked back up. He was actually in the lead, I believe, before we went into our actual overtime, and then we got stacked back up, but then he had to work his way to the front again with multiple people crashing and spinning, and that was a little chaotic. We're going to talk about it, but let's get to the rest of your top 10. A reminder that Kurt Busch is still out, Alex Bowman is still out, and Cody Ware was not in this weekend, so if you see some different names on the list on our roster for who finished where, that is why. So starting with our second place finisher, it was actually Kevin Harvick. A really good day for him. We do need to talk about something though with Kevin Harvick revolving a penalty, but first a Shrigley stat. Something really cool about Kevin Harvick. I mean, he's been in the sport for a long time. His crew chief has been in the sport for a long time. But with Kevin Harvick specifically, he is the first driver in the NASCAR Cup Series history to reach 600 races where he has finished on the lead lap. I mean, think about the time it's taken to get there and also just the energy and the skill you have to finish 600 races on the lead lap. That is so cool for Kevin Harvick. What is not cool, though, is the penalty that he was given this past week after the Roval, I should say after Talladega. After Talladega, Harvick's car went to the R&D center and they found that there was a single-sourced part that was modified. This means that there was a 100-point deduction for the team and driver's points, a $100,000 fine, plus a 4-race suspension for crew chief Rodney Childress. One of the steepest penalties in all of NASCAR. If we remember earlier in the season, this happened to Brad Keselowski, and they tried to appeal it. Did not work out for them. Kevin Harvick's team is going to try to appeal this. Personally, I do not think that they have luck on their side. Something important to note, though, is that when William Byron went to appeal his penalty, totally unrelated, the circumstances are way different, but Byron actually won his penalty, got a deduction. I mean, he had to pay more money, $100,000 instead of $50,000, but he also got no deduction of points. NASCAR actually went back in the rule book after the appeals panel said, yeah, Byron, you're good, we'll appeal some things. And NASCAR actually changed the wording in the rules that Byron actually appealed. They got rid of the and or in monetary or points fine, but Harvick here, I don't think is as lucky. We will have to see later this week what the appeals process brings him, if he's as lucky as Byron or not. But that is an update on Kevin Harvick right in the middle of talking about our finishing positions. He finished in the 2nd position, so pretty good on him, but they're going to have to fight this appeal to be able to get some points back. 3rd, we have Kyle Busch. This is his first top 5 or top 10 at a road course this season, so a really solid and lucky day for Kyle Busch. Then at 4th, we have AJ Allmendinger. He could have won, then Harvick nudged him out for the lead before the overtime happened. Then we have colleague teammate Justin Haley. In 6th place, we had Chris Buescher, who started the race at the rear of the field, so a really good comeback for him. 7th place, we had Bubba Wallace, an early penalty missing the chicane he had to come back from. This is his 2nd top 10 at a road course, so really solid for Bubba Wallace. 8th, we have Tyler Reddick, and 9th, we have Chase Briscoe. Another honorable mention for the MVP of the race because he raced his way into the next round of the playoffs. However, that came at a potential cost with the help of a teammate. Briscoe owes Cole Custer his life for the rest of the season, as he was most likely the reason that Briscoe is even in the round of 8. Cole Custer ended up slamming his brakes or just holding everybody up behind him. Austin Dillon and I think Eric Jones. He was able to hold everybody back so Chase Briscoe could advance through the field and get those points that he desperately needed. NASCAR did issue a statement saying that they are going to be reviewing this incident, looking at the tapes, looking at the radio transmissions, and seeing if this was intentional or not. In my opinion, this was pretty intentional, but obviously you gotta review the footage, review the tapes, and then there might be a penalty for this for Cole Custer, but they made it clear that this will not affect who was in the round of 8. This will most likely just affect Cole Custer, but we will probably get a statement about their findings and about the penalties that could ensue in the middle of the week, earlier in the week, so we will have an update for you on TobyChristieCom, most likely, but this could be a major blow to Cole Custer, potentially, but this really benefited his teammate, Chase Briscoe, who is now into the round of 8, something I did not see happening, something I did not think would happen going into this week, but here we are. Then in 10th, we have Austin Dillon, and looking at the rest of your playoff contenders, 13th, we have Hamlin, 16th, Byron, 18th, Logano, 20th, Elliott, who was in contention for a win that got spun out after Reddick nudged him. Chase Elliott altogether was not a ray of sunshine following this race. We are not going to talk about the camera incident where he ended up shoving a camera, telling them to go away. We're not going to talk about that. We are going to talk about, though, what he said about his chances going into the next round. He said, "We sucked at Las Vegas at the beginning of the year. Martinsville, you can't pass." That he does not feel confident at all going into this round of 8, which I'm pretty sure some of that was maybe some frustration, but you do have to look at the stats from earlier this year. So a little worry for Chase Elliott, who in my opinion is the championship favorite. We could see some shockers. Maybe he's not even in the championship 4. I think that would take a lot to get there, but we've also seen that he has had to dig himself out of a lot of holes during the playoffs, starting off the first rounds of these rounds. I don't want to see Chase Elliott fumble the bag, if you know what I mean. I don't want to see him miss out on the championship 4 because something is either out of his control or he's not able to perform the best he can to start off the round of 8. So we'll have to see for Chase Elliott, but he's a little hesitant going into this round. Then in 21st, we have Austin Cindric. Then 26th, Ryan Blaney. Now it's time to briefly glance at the ATYL points. Dom Joseph was your winner of the weekend, picking the race winner, Christopher Bell. So he got 5 points. He now has 87 points. I am in second place with 78 points. Adam Lucas with 77 points. Brandon Lowe with 73 points. And Rob Branding with 70 points. Now, if we look at our playoff grid after this last race in the round of 12, we have our round of 8 set and their rankings. At the top of that ranking, obviously, is Chase Elliott. Then we have Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, and Christopher Bell. Can you imagine if those were your championship 4 right now? The upset, having Hamlin out, Blaney out. And honestly, my opinion is maybe Blaney will win the championship without even winning a race. I think he would have to win a race, though, the final race of the season, to get the championship, but wouldn't that just be spectacular, something to end this crazy season off on? It's amazing the names that we do not see in the championship 4 contention right now, but those that are on the outside looking in, going into the round of 8, are William Byron, who would be a shocker if he didn't get into the championship 4, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, and Chase Briscoe. Now let's take a look at those 4 unlucky drivers that did not make it into the round of 8. The first of those being a major shocker, defending champion Kyle Larson. Missed it by 1 or 2 points. An absolute tragedy, and that just goes to show you this playoff system will produce those tragic moments. Kyle Larson clearly dejected after the race. I'm sure his teammates were also very upset for him. It all was because of Cole Custer. In my opinion, Cole Custer was able to make this happen for his teammate Chase Briscoe, who is now below the cutoff line, the last guy who was able to make his way into that championship four if he's able to win or something. That would be a shocker if he made it into the championship four, but Kyle Larson will not be able to defend his crown this season. After him, we have Daniel Suarez, who missed the cut, Austin Cindric, and then Alex Bowman, of course, who was not able to race this weekend. Finally, let's go into our race rating above or below the yellow line. We always like to look at our Twitter and YouTube comments, so let's start by looking at those polls and seeing what you all thought about this race. On Twitter, 6.5% of you said this was a great race, not looking good here. 14% said good, 27.5% said okay, and 52%, an overwhelming majority of you out of 200 votes, said this race was bad. YouTube, things were a little bit closer together. 9% of you said this was great, 27% of you said good, 30% said okay, and so far 34% of you said bad. Out of 877 votes, thank you all for showing up on YouTube. Now I want to read some of your comments. Mark said, oval would have been much better. We're going to address this comment later. Mike Mass said, it was rather boring, except for the last several laps. I graded it okay. I appreciate you telling me what you actually graded the race. Then on YouTube, we had a whole slew of comments. Mr. Amazing, I love that name, said, I thought it was the best race of the year after Coda. There is so much action on the road courses. Then from there we have Kylitos saying, glad Christopher Bell won, finally in the DeWalt Car 2. I would agree with that, very excited to see that. To briefly address the Roval versus Oval comments, I really do think that we need to keep both on the schedule, or at least just have the Oval once a year. You saw the 600, everything was packed, and I'm sure next season it's going to be packed too. I was at the race this year. I'm going back next year because of the amazing racing I saw, and I also know that there's going to be only one Oval date. If there were two Oval dates, I'd probably be like, well, do I go in the fall or do I go in the summer? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's going to be a lot of debates as to whether you would go to one race over the other, and since we only have one Oval race, it creates that scarcity that is going to be bringing fans out. Do I think that's right? Maybe not. A good business move, but I think that we should be keeping both on the schedule. You saw even at the Roval, there was a packed house. At least it looked like it to me from looking at the TV. Some people that I know that were there texted and said that it looked pretty full, which is really, really good. So if we're offering both types of racing and it's bringing fans out, keep it in my opinion. That's good for the sport in my opinion. So keeping both tracks is what we have to do. As for the race itself, it did not wow me. It was not my favorite of the season. It's going to be pretty low on my rating list. I will say I do appreciate that we didn't see any tire failures, any major mechanical failures during this race that we've seen in the past few to start the playoffs, so I do appreciate that. But overall, just passing was pretty frustrating. You couldn't get any position really anywhere. Passing for the lead also took several laps to build up a path to be able to pass if you could. So that was my frustration during this race. Not a whole lot of action. I didn't feel immersed in the race like I usually do, and I think that was just because of a lack of passing yet again. And then the chaos at the end. I mean, it was chaos. We didn't ask for it. I know a lot of you were like, we asked for chaos, here you go. I wasn't a really big fan of it, especially how everything played out. It just did not feel right to me this weekend. Because of that, I gotta give this race a rating below the yellow line with a 49%. So what did you think of the Bank America Roval 400? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we are done with this episode of Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. To catch more from us here and at TobyChristie.com, make sure to check out our social media pages for more NASCAR and racing content. Finally, I also want to thank Shaq Gear for supporting ATYL and TobyChristie.com. They have an awesome promo code for you, Mamba34, to get 20% off your Shaq Gear glasses order on their website. You can find all of those links in the description below, but before you check those out, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends and family, and guys, thank you so much for supporting us here at TobyChristie.com and Above the Yellow Line, and until next time, I'll see ya.